Peace, family, and welcome to the very first episode of The Stacks, a series from the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center here at Howard University. I'm your host, Junious IV.
And I'm Ashley Reynolds. Whether you're just getting to know the yard or returning for your senior lab, this space is here to help you tap into the culture, the archives, and the legacies that make the Mecca more than a nickname. It's a living memory.
It's only right we begin with the welcome to campus, to Founders Library, and to the history that lives within these walls. But first, we always begin by honoring an ancestor.
Today we honor Albert Irvin Cassell, the Black architect who helped shape the physical identity of Howard University. A graduate of Cornell, Cassell joined the university in the 1920s and went on to design some of the most iconic buildings on campus, including this one, Founders Library.
But it wasn't just about buildings. Cassell envisioned a Howard that stood tall, architecturally and intellectually. He laid out the yard with intention, believing our physical space should reflect Black excellence in every brick. That's the legacy we walk through every day. This week's campus is full of energy with the excitement around the International Black Writers Festival. This festival, which has had for the last few years, which will bring back writers from all over. This is one of the most vibrant moments of the year and provides students an opportunity to meet some of our leading voices in the literary world. There will be panels and much more intellectual fun. While we host esteemed writers on our historic campus, we felt it made sense to add a piece about the layered history of Founders where our historic thought leaders' works are housed.
Founders Library opened in 1939 and quickly became the academic and cultural heart of campus. Inside, the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center has grown to become one of the world's largest repositories for the history and culture of people of African descent. Books, newspapers, photographs, and oral histories. The receipts are here, from Washington, D.C. to West Africa and everywhere in between. To help us go deeper, we're joined by someone who knows this building and its mission intimately.
And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Benjamin Talton, Executive Director of the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center. Also, he has a bachelor's in Howard's history program and got his doctorate from the University of Chicago. He also serves on the board of the American Historical Review, among a plethora of accolades, like serving as a professor at Kwame Nkrumah Academy of History and Science.
Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology.
Excuse me, my apologies, but Dr. Talton's resume is honestly too long for us to get through this.
It's all right, that's okay.
But yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Of course.
So, for folks new to campus or just unfamiliar with MSRC, what is the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center and why is it so important, Dr. Talton?
Great question that I'm asked all the time, and I always give a different answer every time I answer it. But for me personally, it's super special because I was a student here, as you said, class of 1996, and I spent a lot of time in the reading room. The reading room really was Moorland to me, and all the books and the Scurlock photos around. It just felt like it felt like and it is sacred space. Mm-hmm. So it's part of my own personal biography, my own personal journey through the African diaspora and on my road to going to graduate school as a historian. But also it's important because what you guys said in the intro, it's living memory. It's a place where, particularly in this climate where it really is a legacy of trying to erase Black history, the experiences of people of African descent, and our contributions not just to the United States but to the world. We are we house the facts that counter the lies. I always say Howard University is a place where we always undermine stereotypes about people of African descent, and Moorland is central to that role. And it's really the center of campus, right? We're literally the center of campus, but we're also central because we are one of the few units that really touch every part of the university, from the medical school to the history department. I'm pointing to where they are. The medical school to the history department to chemistry, fine arts, athletics. We house their papers, but also we're really a window into the global Black experience. So as you said in the introduction, we have the individual and organizational archives of people from around the world. You named some there. James Agre, who's the founder of Archivist College, the first secondary school in the Gold Coast that becomes Ghana. We have some of his papers, Kwame Nkrumah. Lane Locke, of course. So you're entering these buildings that have the names of these people, but we have the papers that they wrote on and touched. So Frederick Douglass even, who was the longest serving member of our board of trustees and one of our founders, 25 years, I believe. He was on the board. We have his photo album. He was one of the most, I think he was the most photographed person of the 19th century. So we touched the papers that they touched, right? We house the papers that they produced. So that makes us extremely important. Again, I think of us as the center of campus.
Many students came for Welcome Week events and founders and even study here, but may not know the deep history tied to the space. Can you talk about the building's role in Howard's legacy?
Absolutely, and you already alluded to it in the intro. I know I was listening to a podcast, maybe it was an IG post, where someone was speaking about Black DC and historic spaces in Black DC that you can go to on a tour. And they named these different spaces, right? But they didn't name Howard University.
Wow.
And I think of Howard not just as an institution of higher education, higher learning, but it's a historic site. I call it a sacred, Moorland is a sacred space, but so is Howard. When you look at the buildings that we enter, I'm very proud of the fact that our buildings are named after, as you all said, our ancestors. So you go into Fraser Hall, where you might live as a freshman woman on campus. Drew Hall, as a freshman man on campus. Cook Hall, but then we have Elaine Locke Hall, who was a professor here, Dean of the Harlem Renaissance. Frederick Douglass Hall, I already said, right? One of the longest serving members of our Board of Trustees, and Just. And on and on and on. I used to live in Lucy Diggs Slow Hall as a student. So you're engaging this historic space. You're walking these paths that people like Amiri Baraka walked on. Zolander Hurston, who founded our Hilltop newspaper in 1924. But also we talked about our ancestor for today, Albert Cassell. I'm very proud that we are historically Black. I use the historically Black more than I use HBCU, because it's a diverse, it's an array of institutions that make up HBCUs. And Howard's unique because it's written into the Constitution, it's in the nation's capital, it's the largest private, and it's the only research one. And so we're literally written into law. We exist by law. So it makes us very different than a Lincoln. We love all of our Black colleges, but Howard is unique in that regard. So we're historically Black, but also our buildings were designed by African American architects. So our ancestor for today, Albert Cassell, we're in this space that he was purposely creating, anticipating its historic significance, because it's designed as a replica of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. So he was very purposeful in how he designed it. But then also when you go to Douglass Hall, which opened a year before Founders Library, it looks a lot like Founders. And then you go down into the Valley, the chemistry building looks a lot like Douglass Hall. But we also have Hilliard Robinson, who was an African-American architect from the early 20th century, who worked with Albert Cassell. He designed Ira Aldridge Theater. He designed our power plant. I'm pointing to them. He designed the engineering building. I believe he designed what's now the middle school. It used to be a school of human ecology. So not only is our administration of people of African descent, not only is our curriculum designed for students who are of African descent, but we're still diverse, right? But our buildings were designed by people of African descent. So when you come to DC and you don't stop at Howard University, there's a huge gap in your historic itinerary to engage Black DC and Black America and the global Black experience.
And so even with that, with you having such like a extensive knowledge of our history and what we've been as an institution, what we've been as just part of the Black legacy in the diaspora, I kind of wanted to ask more about, like, as you know, you've been leading MSRC into a new chapter, and of course in the new initiatives like this one and others. And so with that, what are some of your key goals as executive director, and especially when it comes to engaging students and getting more people involved?
Wow, my key goals as executive director at
some of them. You
have more than some of them. Well, one of my goals is for us to be, because I think, not for lack of love, but I do believe that our history is still taken for granted. Right? We don't. I think as Americans, that may be true. We're not really historically minded, right? So I want us to be at the forefront of everything. Right? You're always walking in history. You create history as we walk. You walk in it and you're creating it. So one of the things I want to do is, as you see with the programs that we do, what you all are doing with this podcast in the Stacks, is to bring Moorland more to the public. It shouldn't be a place that you just come to if you want to find out some facts about a professor who taught at Howard, or if you want to do some research on Jack and Jill of DC, or the Scottish Rite Masons. We need to bring our history to the public, to the students, to the administration, to America, and to the world. So I think with technology, we can do that. A podcast, we have the Moorland newsletter, we have the International Black Writers Festival, we have this phenomenal exhibit on Gordon Parks that Dr. Melanie Harvey curated. And so we want to be diverse in the ways we engage history and also bring it out to the public. So in that regard, I'm achieving one of my goals, to build up our staff. You all are here, and so we're growing pains and all. So that's to continue to grow. We need to be 3 times the size that we are. So we need revenue for that. So I want to increase the ways in which we engage the public, increase our staff so that we can do this important work. That involves raising money, which we've been doing, but also want Moorland, we say Moorland, we say MSRC. When I say that, when you all say that, it comes with 5 sentences after, because you always have to explain who we are and what it is.
Yeah.
I want to, and I think you all are doing a phenomenal job of helping us get there. When you say Moorland-Spingarn, it's like saying the Apollo Theater. It's like saying the Schomburg. It's like saying, what, the White House. You don't have to explain what the White House is. We don't have to explain what the Apollo is. We have to explain what Moorland-Spingarn is. As important as we are, I say we are the center of campus. We are the largest in the world repository of its kind. I mean, that's a big thing to say.
For the Black experience of that. So.
But we have to explain that. And so I want us to be self-sustaining. I want us to have the capacity to do the work. And I want us to be able to just say Moorland, and people know what you're talking about. People, oh wow, you work at Moorland? Okay. We're not there yet, but that's where I want to go.
Okay. So let's say a student wants to do some research, maybe on their family, their organization, or a historical topic. What's the first step they should take?
The first step for a student who wants to do research on whatever topic, well, it's very different from when I was a student here, because we had to physically come into this space. And the first step then would have been to ask a question of a librarian or an archivist. We had books called journal finders. We had to comb through our card catalogs. We had to know how to read those. Now, fortunately, we have the internet. So the first step for a student who's going to eventually encounter Moorland is to do that online search. And then we have Digital Howard, fortunately. So I would say go to our website, msrc.howard.edu. We also have a big, beautiful button on the right-hand corner called Donate. So that could be a stop, not necessarily for the student, but maybe for the student's parents. But do an online search, and then you could also pose questions via the website. So Digital Howard is separate from the Howard website, right? So Digital Howard is where we have some of our online collections, historic photographs of Howard. You could read the Hilltop on Digital Howard, which is our student newspaper. You could read the Bison, which is our yearbook, all the way back to 1924, which is amazing. I've been slowly going through the Hilltops, reading them. I've been slowly going through the Bison. It's a good time on a Friday night to just be online doing historical research. But then come in and ask questions of the archivists and librarians here. But I think the first stop is to do your online research. We have our finding aids online. We have our catalog online if you want to do the library side. And so it's really right in your dorm room or your living room, wherever you are, you can access a lot of our material, but you can also find out what we have. So that's the first step. But if you're doing family histories, I'm not a genealogist, but asking those questions in your own household is a very important stop. Asking if Big Mama's still around, God bless her, you sit down with her, I'm sure she'd love some questions, or your uncle, your parents or older siblings, right? I'm a historian, but in my family, my older sister is the one, and my brother, to a slightly lesser extent, but they know the family history better than I do. So even now, I ask them questions all the time. Get those family photos out and make sure you say, who is this person, and write it down. What happens is that you get these big boxes of photographs, and you don't know who the people sitting next to your uncle or your aunt or your mother or father are in these photos, or where it was, or what year. So do your online research, ask questions of your family if you're doing genealogies, but also come in. We love to have students here. I wish the reading room that we have, this historic, beautiful reading room, was packed with students. I wish you had to find a seat. I wish we were bombarded by visitors. And so again, Junious asked me, what are some of my goals? That would be one of them, to get more students in here.
So it's interesting that you talk about, of course, like in doing more self-engagement, getting more people into our space, which leads me to my next question, which is about the International Black Writers Festival.
Right.
And so I understand that the festival will be occurring this month. So what I wanted to ask you about is, could you tell us about what was the purpose and sort of mission behind, of course, making this festival, and then what events or authors are you particularly excited about for the festival?
Interestingly, the origins of the International Black Writers Festival are the Black Writers Conferences from the 1970s here at Howard. name a writer, name a poet, name an essayist from the 1960s and 70s. They were here on Howard's campus. And it was a time when there was no doubt that Howard was the central intellectual space for Black people in America. And as we move into the 90s and 2000s, more and more writers, essayists, and Black professors are at predominantly historically white institutions. And so when we have conversations about what's significant in terms of literature, what's significant in terms of historical topics, you're going to professors, writers, essayists at predominantly white institutions. Who's given, and they're getting the awards, right? You don't need to go to Black institutions. You're getting National Book Awards. You're getting Pulitzers. Name these awards a Black person has gotten one. The MacArthur grant, right? And so it's actually in conversation just before I arrived at Howard. I had the job, but I hadn't arrived yet. I was having a conversation with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and we were talking about strategies for making sure that we are the ones that decide what's important in terms of what you're reading. We are the ones who decide, we meaning people of African descent, are deciding the political topics that are central to our agenda. And that our institutions are the places where these conversations are happening. Not to say that they're not having, but I think we don't have the resources of these other institutions. So therefore, those who are at those institutions have a louder voice, a larger platform. So we thought of different ways we can place Howard more firmly at the center. This is not to do any disregard to the professors who were here before I arrived, because they were doing tremendous, powerful work. But we said, let's honor our ancestors by bringing back the Black Writers Conference. But the way I'm very proud of the fact that Howard is global. I say that Howard is the most diverse space in America because it's diverse in its Blackness, right? You name a place in the world where Black people are from, and they're here at Howard University. We have the Caribbean Tree, right? African Students Association, with our largest organizations on campus. We have different international entities. So our tagline is preserving the legacy of the global Black experience. I want to add since 1914. So we added the international component to it because we wanted to continue to have that conversation, to promote, to elevate the fact that we are an international institution. All African Americans have always been global in our outlook. We're like the sponge of the diaspora, right? And so we wanted to add that international component to it. So it's just one of the many ways that we're trying to reach the public, but we wanted to bring writers to campus, elevate the writers that are already on campus, and blow our students' minds. And it's every year when I'm sitting in the front row and they call for questions, and those students who line up to ask the questions, I said, this is why I'm doing this. And when Jackie Woodson was doing her reading 2 years ago, and you see these particularly the young women who are sitting looking amazed at her. They're 3 feet from Jackie Woodson, one of the most celebrated writers of our generation. I said, this is why we're doing this. So again, it's just one of the many ways we want to reach students, reach the public. And my goal, I'm a professor first and foremost. You know, I'm ride or die Moorland, but I'm here as a professor, really. And I just love our students. I just want to blow their minds at every turn. And they deserve this. Howard students deserve it. And the questions they ask, the way they engage, you see I'm getting a little emotional talking about it, right? So I'm very proud of that. And that came out of a conversation that Ta-Nehisi Coates and I had back in 2021.
And what are some of the moments that you're most excited about experiencing?
I am very excited that I have a phenomenal program manager named Aaron Jacobs, who's doing 90% of the work of organizing the International Black Writers Festival, because in the past it was mostly on my shoulders. I'm excited to see the students just in the audience and the look on their face. That's the highlight for me every year. Again, lining up. But we lost Amatu Adu, who was a celebrated Ghanaian novelist and poet, playwright. We lost her a few years ago. And so we have students from the College of Fine Arts who will be doing a table reading of one of her plays. They did it, I think they did it at the Shakespeare Theater last year, and they're bringing that to Howard's campus. And I'm really excited about that. That's that international piece, is honoring our ancestors. And last year we had a table reading from College of Fine Arts, a dramatic reading on the last day. and I'm still shaking my head in amazement at these students. It's like, to me, these are all these young folks, but when they're on that stage, they become giants. And it's just breathtaking, literally breathtaking. So I'm excited to see that again this year. I will be in conversation with my friend Clarence Haynes, who I attended high school with in the Bronx we had honors English together at the Bronx High School of Science in 1990, I want to say. Yeah, that's a long time. That's the late 1900s, I say. And so we had honors English together, and he continued on. He's a brilliant editor, and he has a new novel out that I'm excited to be reading, and so he and I are going to be in conversation. But I also love that we recycle artists, writers, and essayists. So Jacqueline Woodson is returning, and she'll be in conversation with our own Dana Williams, Dean of the Graduate School, who has her own new book out, Toni Morrison, Toni at Random, right? I think that's the title. Toni Morrison at Random, talking about her years as an editor. She helped produce so many phenomenal, including James Baldwin. She was James Baldwin's editor. So she and Jacqueline Woodson will be in conversation. That's going to be it. So yeah, I'm excited about so many of the panels, including yours. Black Love is Resistance with Beverly Jenkins. That's going to be fantastic. It makes me think back to the wonderful exhibit that the Archivist here put on down in our Breezeway Gallery on Black Love. And just think about the different iterations of Black Love, because it is resistance, right? Just loving each other, sadly, is a form of resistance here. As is Rest, which was another panel we had 3 years ago with the NAP Ministry. But the event is 3 days. We have Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday are our main days, so that's October 1st and October 2nd. But it's September 3rd through October 2nd, right here on Howard's campus. 3 full days of phenomenal programming, and I'm excited to see the look on these students' faces. Gonna be amazing as usual.
Finally, in the spirit of closing our first month of the semester, what advice would you offer to students, especially new Bisons trying to find their place on campus?
Advice to our Bison students. So much I can say about that. That's a pretty big question.
Very good.
Because it depends on the student. But in general, I like to tell students to just keep an open mind. Wander campus, visit organizations. That's part of keeping an open mind. You never know. Have patience, right? You have to have patience. The first 2 years in particular, you're finding your way. You're finding your way in life, finding your way through your major. It's a lot of pressure to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life at the age of 17 or 18. That's crazy. But we ask them to do that. So that's the patient part. Explore. Come to Moorland-Spingarn and sit with us and have conversations about the African diaspora and Black literature and Black history. But really just have patience, explore, keep an open mind, sleep, right? Sleep. You got that one day where you're not going out. Choose the day you go out, either Friday or Saturday. You can't go out both days. You have to take your time out to study. But I'm excited for them. Every semester, I lament the summer because the campus is most beautiful in the summer. And it's still beautiful now when they're coming back, but the weather's starting to cool down a little bit. But when the students are back, it's always extremely exciting. And so it's like a new chapter opening for them and for me. Like, they stay the same age. I get older and older, but the excitement never wanes.
Truly. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Dr. Talton. For listeners interested in learning more, MSRC has extensive holdings, including original architectural plans tied to Albert Cassell, university bulletins dating back to the early 20th century, Welcome Week flyers, yearbooks, and so much more.
In addition, our archives division is open to the public, and many of our materials are available online through our digital collections. If you're curious about Cassell's work beyond Howard, we recommend checking the Library of Congress or the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Here's something to take with you. Founders Library was designed with a clock tower not to copy any Ivy League campus, but to symbolize that Black scholarship belongs at the highest level. It sits on one of the highest points on campus intentionally. Every time that bell rings, it's a reminder that our knowledge, our history and our people continue to rise.
And for those who don't know, the MSRC has every bison yearbook. So if you want to find that photo of your org in 1985 or see what your great aunt looked like pledging in 1972, we've got it. And we're always adding more.
That's a wrap on our first episode of In the Stacks. Big thanks to Dr. Benjamin Talton for joining us and giving all his insight to not only us, but to all the students and the public who were engaged with our YouTube series. And we look forward to returning with another one very, very soon. So you can follow us on Instagram at MoorlandHU, and you can follow us on X at MSRC Howard. Also, you can stop by the reading room anytime. I'm Junious Whitaker IV.
And I'm Ashley Reynolds.
Signing off from the archives. See you next time in our next episode in the series.